It's week 8 for the garden, so that means these plants, these 2 tomato plants were planted 8 weeks ago today. I'm going to leave last week's video up because I want you to see the difference between this week's plants and last week's plants. These plants are now 6 foot tall and they're absolutely loaded with tomatoes, so I want you to see the difference between the tomatoes from last week and the ones from this week. So if this is the first video you've watched, I want you to go back and look at week 7 because I want you to see the difference between the tomatoes and how we've had to tie this plant up because it's just getting so big. So I'm going to give you a close-up here, so hang on for a second. This is the close-ups for week 8. I just want you to see how tall these tomato plants are. Like I said, they're 6 feet tall or better because these cages are a little over 5 foot tall. And these plants are going up well above the cage. So they're doing well. We've actually had to tie them up to the cage just because they were hanging out so far. Some of the branches were coming out, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you a hint. Don't try to force them back in here too much because otherwise you'll have this happen, which is, let's see if I can get this in the shot. There it is. I tried to force this one back in the cage and I snapped it off. So, but we still have tomatoes, a little tomato growing there. But there was a bunch of tomatoes growing. These are the ones. These are the cluster of 3 from last week. If I can get through here, they're much bigger than they were last week. There's clusters everywhere of tomatoes. They're hard to see because because of the leaves. There's three here. There's more. There's just so many leaves that are really hard to see, but this thing is loaded with tomatoes. Here's another cluster of 2 that we had last week, and they're much bigger than they were. More up here. You can see how this plant's growing up. I was going to try to force this one in, but I said no, I'm not going to try it, so I just tied it to the cage and it's going up. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, I tied this one to the cage just because I wanted to get it out of the way. I did get the top part up in here, but here's some more tomatoes down here. You said these are, it's hard for me to do this with one hand, but yeah, we've got tomatoes here. There's that tomato, big tomato from last week is getting bigger. They're all over the place. There's more big ones, more clusters back here. So these are really loaded with tomatoes. I can't even show you them all just because all the leaves are in the way, and it's really hard to get on video. This is the other plant, and we've got tomatoes here. Look at this. Look at these clusters right here. There's a cluster of 3 here, and there's a cluster of 5 right here. These are better boys. So I just wanted you to see the close-ups of them. We're getting more and more. There's more of the tomatoes. More tomatoes back there. Can't hardly see them because of all these leaves, but these plants are just loaded with tomatoes. So, plant it for 8 weeks. They're 6 feet tall, and they're loaded with tomatoes. And they're going to keep getting more tomatoes as the summer goes on. So, come back and we'll probably do another video next week or the week after and see how they're doing.